answered.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolf alongside Nick Wright, Kevin Wildes, Greg Jennings is with us, and we got a big Tuesday morning show for you. It is Tua versus the field. Wildes is on board with the new Patriot way, and Nick and I have something in common that is definitely going to surprise you. But we have to start in the NFL this morning. The draft is now just 23 days away. One of the biggest questions surrounds Tua Tagovailoa. Tua coming off a hip injury after a slew of other injuries. But according to Tua's agent, he is fully cleared and ready to compete without any restrictions. Nick, let's kick off the conversation with you. How comfortable should teams be drafting Tua at this point?
As comfortable as you can be drafting any quarterback in the top 10. Here's one of the reasons I'm seemingly so pro Tua compared to some of my colleagues in the media is because I remember, and maybe other people don't, that every top 10 quarterback since Peyton Manning, since Andrew Luck, so go back the better part of a decade, has had major red flags. Every single one of them. Kyler Murray would have been the shortest starting quarterback in NFL history. The same year, Daniel Jones. You've never seen a top 10 quarterback with that collegiate statistical profile pan out. The year before, Baker had height issues and character judgment issues. Obviously, in Wyoming's quarterback, Josh Allen, he had awful collegiate numbers. Mitch Trubisky was a one-year wonder. Patrick Mahomes was too much of a make it happen quarterback in both directions, and his team barely won half of the games he started. Go up and down the list. Blake Bortles, everything about him was a question mark. There aren't these sure things. This idea that Tua is more of a risk than your traditional top 10 pick, the safest top 10 pick in the last decade, post Andrew Luck, Wildes, is Sam Darnold. And even Darnold had question marks because of the turnovers his final year at USC. So I just don't buy that Tua's in a special category by himself because of the injury question marks, Kevin, because all of the top 10 quarterbacks have major question marks.
Yeah, Nick, I think he's a little bit riskier than you might, but my advice to all GMs out there is fortune favors the bold. And to be a little bit simpler, don't be a wimp. Just don't be a wimp. At some point, you're going to be on a Zoom call with your front office, and the two words are going to come out. We're scared. You're going to be scared of his hip. You're going to be scared of the prognosis. You're going to be scared if he gets hit. You're going to be scared that you haven't had enough time with him. Don't be scared. It's pretty easy. Don't be scared. Because if you want to talk yourself out of Tua, you easily can. The article that came out yesterday, they said they hadn't even seen hip dislocations like that on the football field because they're mostly car accidents. So if you want to be scared, you can be scared. But look, it reminds me of Steph Curry. So everyone that watched the tournament knew that Steph was amazing. But then you started to read. Okay, his game won't translate. He's got bad shot selection. He's not a true point guard. He's got a frail frame. And then what happens? They draft Ricky Rubio and Johnny Flynn, and you passed on a franchise-making player because you got scared and you weren't bold. So my advice, Jenna, is to all GMs, do not be scared. Draft Tua.
Listen, I think when it comes to injury, though, it's a little bit different than you're questioning his height or his hand size or
True.
His athletic ability and whatnot. Remember Sam Bradford? Remember, he barely played his last year. He had terrible shoulder injuries coming out of Oklahoma. Was still taken number one by the Rams. I guess, Greg, my question is, if teams believe in the talent, why not just take him since everything else seems to be a crapshoot, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, Jenna, I think you make a better point than Nick even made with his comparisons of non-injury risks with Sam Bradford. And I think the number one thing teams have to consider is what they could potentially get. When it came to Sam Bradford, there weren't a lot of other quarterbacks available, and he was the obviously best available. Now, you look at this draft, you have Joe Burrow, you have all these other guys, the CeeDee Lambs, you have Chase Young, obviously. You have other options that you could potentially get if you're in that position. And you look at Tua and what he provides, and is it exciting? Of course, but there will always be those general managers, Kevin, to your point, that will be scared, and owners that will be scared and try to err on the side of caution. And I agree with you, possibly for the first or second time, Kevin, they should not be. High risk, high reward. He's a wild card. And in most decks, the wild card is the most important card and the most elusive, most exciting. Everybody is after it. Everybody's looking at their hand the moment they flip their cards over and saying, oh, shoot, I got a wild card. Good, great. It's a great thing to have. And so I love everything about Tua. The reason why a lot of teams are going to be a little leery is because they can't send their medical staffs to him, and he can't come to their clubs and their organizations and their buildings for their medical staff to assess them. Teams like to have their personnel look at players, scout players, view players themselves, as well as their medical team assess players. And that can't happen right now.
Wait, before we move on, if I may just quick, I apologize, Jenna. Just before we move on to where he could go, I'm just curious to the group. Why is one red flag different than the other? Why is a guy, we know how good he is. We know how talented he is. There is a concern about his health. Why is that scarier than a guy like Daniel Jones or Josh Allen or Mitch Trubisky, who it's like, well, they're big and strong and healthy, but we don't know if they're actually any good. Or a guy like Kyler Murray, who it's like, well, we know what he accomplished at the collegiate level, but we've literally never seen someone his size do it at the professional level. I don't understand why we're acting like the medical issue is so much different or so much worse than the others, when whether a guy can't play for you because he's hurt or whether he can't play for you because he stinks, either way, he can't play for you. So to me, all the red flags go in the same bucket, and we don't have a perfect prospect. Not since Luck, and it turns out even with Luck, he played 7 years and said, I've had enough of this. So I just don't know that I buy that Tua should be evaluated differently. The question with Joe Burrow is, why was he good for 1 year? Now, he was great for 1 year, but it was 1 year. Like, I just don't buy that Tua should be in a special class by himself, Jenna.
And now this sits in every GM's lap who has a chance to move up and grab Tua. Do you get him or not? A red flag is a red flag is a red flag. So, Nick, let me just throw it back to you quickly. Where do you think he ends up? Who's going to take a chance on him?
Well, he's not going to get past Miami. Miami would absolutely love if they can sit there at 5 and take him. But the question is, Washington, are they going to abandon Haskins, take Tua at 2? Are they going to trade out of the pick at 3? Detroit? Does Matt Patricia feel the pressure to win right now, try to alleviate some of that pressure by saying we've drafted the quarterback of the future? We know the Giants at 4 won't take him, but Wilds, could the Chargers try to jump in front of Miami and trade with the Giants if he's still there? There is no chance, in my mind, Kevin, he goes past 5 if the Dolphins are sitting there at 5. The question is, does he go 2, 3, 4 because a team trades up to get in front of Miami? To me, that's the real intrigue of this top 5 of the draft.
Yeah, it's like we talked about the other day. I do not, as a Patriots fan, I do not want to see Tua in the division. So I hope he goes to, the Redskins, I guess.
Anywhere else. All right, we got to take a break. Coming up, we learn that Brady actually pitched himself to the Bucs. Why? Next on First Things First.